Okay, and please mute your microphone if you don't have you don't want to say anything, just to avoid any noise. Okay. Okay, thank you. All right. So let's start with the session. As we were saying, today's session it's dedicated to uniform personnel. Okay, to travel administrators for uniform personnel. Okay. And the first thing I wanted to clarify to everybody is from the system point of view, which are the difference between an IUP, right, and the rest of the uniform personnel, right? Because this is something that, from the system point of view, has an impact, okay, and it's something new, maybe for most of you, okay? So we have to distinguish individual uniform personnel from all the others, because from the system point of view, they are treated differently, okay? So you can see here the 6 employee subgroups from M1 to M6, okay? First of all, I didn't ask, can you see my screen properly, and can you hear me? So please, if anybody can write something in the chat indicating that you can hear me properly. Okay, thank you, Rennie. All right, so okay. So you can see and hear me. Thank you so much for the feedback. So in this slide, you have the 6 military employees or groups. So in the HR profile of any uniform personnel, they will belong to one of these 6 categories, right? To one of these 6 employees or groups. All right. So only these 3, M2, M3, and M6, are considered IUPs, right? Are considered individual uniform personnel, and only these 3 employees groups will be granted access to employees self-service. Only person belonging to these 3 employees groups will be granted with a Unite ID account and will have access to the portal to raise their own travel requests. All right, and then later on in this session we will talk about what kind of travel requests have access to the portal. Okay. All right. So the rest of the person that are not under M2, M3, and M6, right, are uniform personnel, are not considered IUPs. They will not have access to the portal, and all their travel requests will be raised on their behalf by the travel administrators. Okay, so basically the IUPs are those militaries, right? Those uniform personnel that are deployed in a mission using a commercial flight, while all the others are normally deployed as a group using a charter flight. There is no commercial flight used to deploy them. Okay. All right. So yes, so we will share all this presentation. We will share it with all of you, and also, as we are also recording this session, we will also share with you the recording to this web session, so you can review any part of it. Okay. So the IUPs will have access to the portal, and that will have an impact on the type of travel requests they can raise by themselves. Okay. So let's talk about the different type of travel requests. All right. So the first type we wanted to discuss about are the deployment and repatriation travel requests, and all the deployment and repatriation travel is done always on behalf by the travel administrator. So you, as a travel administrator for UPs, you will be able to raise deployment and repatriation travel for uniform personnel. Okay, so deployment and repatriation travel is the one that that in the system can be raised as a group. So the travel administrator for UPs can raise a group travel request to deploy or to repatriate a group of IUPs, right? There is no need to raise one unique deployment travel request for each IUP, but a group travel request can be raised, and travel administrator will be able to include several uniform personnel. All right. Travel administrator for this deployment and repatriation travel will be able to link individual shipment requests, because the IUPs are entitled for shipment when they are deployed or when they are repatriated. And they will be also, travel administrators will be also able to submit the linked individual expense reports for the deployment and repatriation travel. Okay, so this is the first type of travel that we will talk about during this session, and the idea is that later on we can even do a demo in the training environment to see how, as a travel administrator, how you will raise deployment or repatriation travel, or how you will raise any other type of travel requests. Okay, so the second type of travel we want.
Leandro, I have a question, please.
Yeah, sure.
In regard of the expense report,
yeah,
and the TV05 raise the expense report when travel commences for the IOP, and later on to raise the shipment request.
So the spend report, as in any case, can only be initiated right when once the travel request is fully approved and after the trip has finished, right? So only after the trip end date has been reached. So only once the trip is completed, the travel administrator will be able to raise the expense report.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And regarding shipments, I think we lost the screen, so let me get it back. Regarding shipment, once the group travel request it's approved, okay, the travel administrator can raise the individual shipment request.
It doesn't matter if it's the travel has been completed or not yet. Like, for example, if the travel has been completed and ONMO has been traveled already, and then expense report submitted, then we can still issue for to raise a shipment request, right?
Yeah, the shipment can be initiated before the trip has been completed, but not the expense report.
I'm talking about okay, expense report submitted for travel, and then the shipment request will be raised.
Yeah.
So it's possible.
So we will see, because we are going to talk about later on about the different steps for the approval. So we will repeat that part once we see the different steps, because I think it's going to be clearer when we see the different steps for the approval of travel request and also the approval of the expense report. Okay. So bear with us, and we will repeat that part when we see the approval steps.
No
okay.
Problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. So we were talking about deployment and repatriation travel. For IUPs, we said they have access to the employee self-service. So the three employees or groups that relate to uniform personnel that are deployed with a commercial flight, they will have access to the portal. They are being granted a Unite ID account. They will be able to connect to the portal, and they can raise their own travel request, but only for within mission travel, right? So only for within mission travel type, and only when no commercial ticket is required. So IUPs can raise their own travel request in the portal, but only for within mission and with no commercial ticket. For example, with a UN flight or a UN vehicle. All right. They will be also able to submit the expense report. So if the IUP raised the travel request, they are also allowed to submit the related expense report, and they also have the option to submit standalone expense reports with the same rules as we currently have. So if the travel if the trip is for 3 days or less, and there is no travel advance, in that case, the standalone expense report option is it allowed for IUPs? Okay. In other cases, let's say, for example, if the IUP has to travel outside mission area, or if the IUP, even if it's within mission area, there is a commercial ticket involved, the IUP will not be able to raise the travel request by themselves, and the travel administrator, so the TB05, the travel administrator will have to raise the travel request on behalf of the IUP. All right? And the same thing applies for the expense report. So if, as a travel administrator, you raise the travel request because it was for outside mission area or because there was a commercial ticket, you will also need to submit the related expense report. Okay, so this is the 3 different type of travel types that we wanted to talk about. Remember that for IUPs, they have access to the portal, they can raise within mission non-commercial. For other type of uniformed personnel that are not IUPs, as they don't have access to the portal, everything will be done on their behalf by the travel administrator role. Okay. All right, so let's start discussing about the deployment and repatriation travel, the one we started with. So everything starts with the index number, right? So this is the HR process. You, as a travel administrator, you are not responsible for executing this part, so you are not responsible for making sure that the IUP or the uniformed personnel has an index number and a proper HR minimaster. But without an index number and a proper HR minimaster, you will not be able to raise the travel request. Okay, so as a travel administrator, for UPs, if you need to deploy or to repatriate a group of IUPs, each of the individual uniformed personnel should have an index number and the minimum amount of information in their HR profile to allow you to raise the group travel request. Okay, so index number and the HR profile, it's a requirement that should be fulfilled by the HR office, and it's a requirement for you to raise the travel request. Okay. All right. Okay, so no questions so far in the chat. So here in the travel request, we have the concept of the group travel. So as we were saying, you as a travel administrator, if you have to deploy a group of IUPs, you can raise a unique group travel request and include the different IUPs that are going to travel together with the same itinerary, with the same baggage entitlements. So only as a group, one unique group travel request. This group travel request will appear also as one group travel request for the TSA, right, for the certifying officer. So the group travel request, when submitted by the travel administrator, will reach the work center, the approval work center of the certifying officer, and the certifying officer will be able to approve the travel request as a group. So no need for the certifying officer to approve each individual IUP, but they will see the travel request, the group travel request, and they can certify it in one step. Okay. The same thing happens for the travel processing officer. Travel processing officer, remember that is the role in the system in charge of liaising with the travel vendor to get the tickets, okay, to get the commercial tickets. So the TPO will also see one request for the entire group travel, okay, and the TPO will approve and will contact the vendor to get the ticket for each individual. Okay. All right. So here we are talking about deployment travel. So all the part of the travel request is done as a group, and right after the TPO has approved the group travel, the system will automatically create one individual tier numbers with their unique travel request number for each IUP included in the group travel request. Okay, so um, before the TPO approves the group travel request, in the system you will only see the group travel request number. And after the TPO approves the group travel request, the system will generate an individual travel request for each IUP. Okay. And remember, here we are talking about deployment and repatriation travel. So this type of travel request is always done on behalf, right, by the travel administrator role. Later on, we will repeat the difference because I've seen some questions about the difference between IUP and uniform personnel. That is the thing we explained in the slide before, but we will repeat it when we talk again about the within mission travel. Okay. All right. So ticket billing process. So the ticket processor, the TB12 role in the system, will receive the invoices sent by the travel vendor. So the travel vendor will send one invoice per traveler, one invoice per IUP, and the ticket processor will pay, right, will process the invoices and will pay the vendor for each of the tickets purchased. Okay. So once the travel request is fully approved, we said that we have the system will generate individual travel requests, okay? And right, coming back to your question regarding shipments and spend reports, so once the travel request is fully approved and the system has generated the individual travel request, you as a travel administrator, you can start raising the shipment request, okay? So once the only requirement for you to be able to raise the shipment request is to have the travel request fully approved. So once the travel request is fully approved, as a travel administrator, you can initiate the shipment request. Okay. Regarding the yeah.
Sorry, my question was after the IOP traveled and we submit expense report on his behalf.
Okay.
Fine. And then the shipment request will take place. Can we do so, or is better just to initiate? I mean, sometimes we can initiate the shipment request after the travel already commenced by the traveler. So that's
you can do it. Yes. So in the system,
even
after the spend report, yes.
Thanks.
Yes. Yes. So the shipment can be done before the spend report or even after. Okay. So from the system point of view, you will be able to do it at the stage that suits you best. Okay, so the only requirement is that the travel request is fully approved, and then you can initiate the shipment request. Okay, and regarding the spend report, remember that you can only initiate the spend report after the trip end date. So after the trip has been finished, so after the IUP has reached the mission, the travel administrator will be able to submit the individual spend reports. So keep in mind that the travel request process to deploy or to repatriate is done as a group, but spend reports are raised individually, for each IUP, and the approval process is also individually, right? So the certifying officer will have to approve each individual spend report raised for each IUP. Okay. All right. So we have some questions about the standalone spend report. So we have a question from Rafek about the if they are, for example, traveling within mission, right? Using a UN vehicle for more than 3 days, right? We said that if the trip is for more than 3 days and they are on official business, the IUP will be able to raise their own travel request. So if we are talking about IUPs, they have access to the portal. If it's a UN vehicle, we don't need a commercial ticket. Okay, so they can raise their own travel request using the portal. And if the trip is for 3 days, is for more than 3 days, travel request is required. Okay, but we are here talking about official travel. So because you're also asking about the leave request. So if the trip is related to leave, right, that's not official. It shouldn't be official, treated as official, and there shouldn't be any travel request involved. Okay, so the only trips we are talking about is the trip for deployment and repatriation, and then the ones related to official travel. Okay. All right. So we said that the travel request part is managed as a group, and the expense report part is managed individually. The same thing as for shipments. So shipments are also managed individually. So the HR part, we said it's a requirement, so we always need the index number, and the HR minimaster is not the responsibility of the travel administrator, it's more the responsibility of the HR office in your mission. Okay, and here you have the roles that are involved in the request of the index number and the approval of the index number, and also the HR partner the HR partner role that can complete the HR details to allow the IUP to travel using Umoja. Okay, so here you have the requirements of the index number and the HR minimaster, but it's not your responsibility to execute those actions. Okay. All right. So as a travel administrator, you will be able to create a group travel request to deploy or repatriate the group of IUPs. These are the 6 different employees or groups. Right. Remember that here we will talk about. So all IUPs included in the group travel request should belong to the same employees or group. So what do we mean by that? So if you as a travel administrator, you are raising a group travel request, you will include the different travelers, right? The different IUPs that will travel in that group. So all the IUPs should belong to the same group. So let's say you cannot mix in the same group police officers with government provided personnel, right? So you should be raising group travel request with only one type of IUPs, right? So all the IUPs included in a group travel request should belong to the same employees group. All of them should have the same itinerary, and all of them should have the same baggage entitlements. Okay. And then, regarding you as a travel administrator, as for any other type of travel request, you will need to indicate the estimated cost. All right. So regarding the airfare ticket cost, you will only have one field. All right. So even if you are traveling 10 IUPs, you will only see one field to indicate the estimated cost. So in that estimated cost, you should be indicating the cost to travel all the IUPs, so the entire group. So in case if you are traveling 10 IUPs, in the estimated cost, you should be indicating the total amount for the entire group. So in our example, the total amount to travel the 10 IUPs. All right. Can you still hear me?
Bianco, I have a question here.
Yes, sure. Yes, Somalia, go ahead.
Yes, here we have seen in the I can see in the presentation.
Yes, sorry, Somalia, but I cannot hear. Your voice is breaking.
Because animals are also entitled for the
Can you repeat the question?
animals are also entitled for the terminal expenses when on deployment and also on repatriation travel.
Yeah, I didn't hear you that well, but I think I got your question. So yeah, in the presentation we said that the airfare ticket cost should be the only expense included. So Shumari, you are right. So IUPs are also entitled to for example, for terminal expenses, right? Yes. So as per the official documentation, the terminal expenses were supposed to be included in the expense report instead of in the travel request. But yeah, from the system point of view, you can include any of them, right? I mean, not only the airfare ticket cost, but also the terminal expenses.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, and thank you, Renny, for the clarification. Yeah, thank you. All right. So for shipment request, we said that they are also raised by the travel administrator. But remember, you can only raise the shipment request after the group travel request is fully approved. Okay, is approved by the TSA and by the TPO. Okay. So once you as a travel administrator have submitted the group travel request, the TSA, right, will certify it. Okay, so as for any other travel request, but they will certify for the entire group, so they don't have to go traveler by traveler. And for the TPO, the travel processing office that will contact the vendor, okay, they will get the final cost of the ticket, right, based on the details provided by the vendor. Okay. They will also review and approve the travel request for the entire group, not for each individual. And this is important. Okay, once the TPO has fully approved the travel request, so once approved, the system will split the group travel request into individual travel requests, one for each traveler. And from there on, we will be working with the individual travel request. So before the TPO approval, we were working with the group trip number, right? There was only one group travel request. From the, after the TPO has approved the group travel request, there will be one trip number for each traveler, and that trip number will appear in the Traveler Work Center of each IUP. Okay. And regarding the estimated cost, remember that you as a travel administrator, you were indicating the estimated cost for the entire group. The TPO will contact the vendor and will get the final price. They will update the final price in the estimated cost for the entire group. And once the TPO approves the group travel request, the system will split the cost, so will equally divide the cost and will put the average rate in each trip number. So let's say that you as a travel administrator, you are raising a group travel request for 10 IUPs. You will indicate the total cost. Let's say, for example, 1,000 for each IUP. You will indicate 10,000 as the estimated cost. The TPO will get the request, will get the final price from the vendor. Let's say that instead of 10,000 is going to be 12,000. Okay, 2,000 increase in the final price. So after the TPO approves it, the system will generate, in this example, 10 different trip numbers, 10 different travel requests, one for each traveler. And as an airfare cost of each individual trip number, the system will divide the 12,000 by 10 travelers and will put in each trip number $1,200. Okay, so this is how it will work for the when generating the individual trim numbers. Okay. Is that concept clear? Any question regarding that automatic generation of the trim numbers? Okay. So that part I think is clear. No questions, no comments in the chat. Okay. So I can go ahead, and from there onwards, everything else is done working with the individual trim numbers. Okay, so the vendor will receive this is, for example, this is the screenshot of the email that is sent to the travel agency, to the vendor. Okay, they will get the group of travelers that they should purchase the ticket. They will get the total cost, right, with including the fees, and they will purchase. In this case, in the example, we are purchasing, or the travel administrator raised a group travel request for 11 travelers, okay, and the travel agency will purchase the ticket for each of the 11 travelers, okay, with that total price. So these $15,000 are meant to cover the trips for the 11 travelers. Okay. All right. So ticket processor will process the invoices sent by the vendors, and your next role as a travel administrator will be to raise the individual expense reports for each IUP. Okay, so you will be able to link or to create a spend report for each individual. Okay, and remember that if there is a travel request approved, you should submit the related expense report. Okay, so that spend report will be related to the trip number that was automatically generated by the system and that is appearing in the Travel Work Center of each IUP. So please do not submit standalone spend reports for this case. Okay, in case of deployment and repatriation, there is always travel request fully approved, and standalone spend report should not be used in that case, and only in some exceptional cases, okay, you will need to raise standalone spend reports. Okay. So the approval of the spend report is the same as always. So if there are changes in the expenses, they will need to be reviewed again by the certifying officer and by the travel claims processor. If there are no changes in the expenses to be paid, okay, the spend reports are automatically approved by the system, what we call the express approval, right? Express expense reports. Okay. All right. So let's. Okay. So the TSA will review.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. This is Amphicipis speaking.
Sure.
Lieutenant Kovac. As a soldier and officer, I am leading the personnel branch. We are involved into this UNOCHA travel project. But going back to your first slide, individually deployed or uniformed personnel. We have staff officers here. They are deploying individually, but you didn't mention.
Staff officers that are. Sorry, which employees or group? It's M1.
M1.
N1.
M1.
All right. N1, right? So this.
We have M1 and M5.
Yeah. So this, they are not in the system. They are not considered IUPs, right? And that they will not be granted access to the employee service. But you can still deploy them, right, individually. So the deployment and repatriation travel also works for M1 or M5. The only difference is that they will not have access to the portal to raise their own travel request for within mission and non-commercial travel.
Yeah, understood. But who will initiate their travels? Who is
So
responsible for that?
The travel administrators. So for M1, M4, and M5, all the travel requests will be raised by the travel administrator on behalf of the uniformed personnel.
Yes, the travel administrator, as far as I understood, should be a permanent member of the mission. I mean, one of the civil employees belonging to HR, for example. So the personal side, the personal part of the mission, I mean the military part, like me and my colleague, we are rotating in every year. So I suppose that we will not be responsible for that. We just provide the passport and all of the details to the travel administrator.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for the answer.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah. Bye. Okay. So yes, as we were mentioning, for IUPs, they have access to the portal. They can raise within mission non-commercial, and for any other case, I mean, UPs will not have access to the portal, and everything will be done on behalf by the travel administrator role. That is a specific role in Umoja that is granted normally to staff of the missions, and they can raise travel requests on behalf of UPs. There are other travel administrators that can raise travel on behalf of staff members or travel on behalf of UMBs, of consultants. So there are travel administrators that can raise travel requests on behalf of different staff and non-staff categories. Okay, and in this particular session, we are talking about raising travel requests for uniformed personnel. Okay. All right. So the spend report that will be also raised by the travel administrator in case there are changes to the expenses to be paid or to be recovered will be raised always by the travel administrator in the case of the deployment and repatriation travel. If there are changes, the spend report will have to be reviewed and reapproved by the certifying officer and the travel claims processor. Okay, so this was the part of the deployment and repatriation travel. Okay, so before we move ahead into the next type of travel, I wanted to show to you how that part works in the system, right? To make it a little bit, not only the presentation, but also to show to you how that works in the system. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna log into the training environment, okay? And I'm gonna be playing the role of travel administrator for UP, okay? So you should already know how to log into production. So the way I'm doing it is a little bit different because I'm logging in the training environment. Okay, so I just wanted to explain to you some screens just to make it a little bit clearer for you how that is working in the system. Okay, I'm logging in as a travel administrator for UP. Okay, and here I have, these are two examples of two index numbers of uniformed personnel. Okay, so as we were saying, if we need to travel a person, we always need their index number. Okay, so no matter if they are IUPs or UPs, if in order to travel a traveler in Umoja, we always need the index number. And the index number part is done by the HR office, right? So I'm gonna be showing to you also the part, a little bit the part of the HR profile of the user. Okay, so I'm logging in ECC, right? So I'm showing to you the part that your HR office is doing, so that you know that that person has already an HR profile, and that's why I can raise the travel request as a travel administrator. Okay. So this is the backend, right, of the system, and if I use this index number, right, this index number, the 2916 to 116, right? I will be able to see that there is already, I mean, you are not supposed to do that as a travel administrator, but I want to show to you that this particular person has already an HR profile in the backend. So the HR office already executed the personnel action to allow that specific IUP to travel using Umoja. Okay, so I'm indicating here the personnel number, and okay, it's a little bit slow, so let's wait a couple of seconds. So here I'm displaying, as you can see, I'm displaying the HR master record. Okay, so here I'm displaying what the HR people do, okay, in order to load, or in order to populate the data for that particular person. Okay, I am indicating here the index number of the person, right? So before that part of the HR, an index number was generated for that particular person, and I'm gonna check what kind of person, the name, surname, and also the employee group, if it works. Okay, so here we have the information. Okay, so the name, surname, and in this case we can see that we are talking about employee subgroup M2. It's a military observer or an ANMEM. Okay, so and we can see that so the system already knows this person is belonging to employee subgroup M2. Okay, so I'm just showing to you that this person has already an HR profile, and now I'm gonna go back to your view, to the Travel Administrator UP view. Okay, so you connect to the portal, and you will use the Travel Administrator tab, right? So you will use the Travel Administrator tab. This is the tab you will use in order to raise any kind of travel request for UPs, right? So I'm going to click on the Travel Administrator tab, and from there, okay, I'm going to click again on the Travel Administration, and I can see here basically two different links. So you can see that you have one to create and process uniform personnel on behalf, and this relates to official business. So you will use this link to raise any official business travel request. Okay, and the second link that you will use relates to repatriation and deployment travel. So this is the one we were talking about before, that relates to the group. Okay, so this relates to the group, sorry, this relates to the group travel. Okay, so remember what we were mentioning before about the group travel to deploy or to repatriate. So the second link is the one that is used to for deployment and repatriation, and the first link is the one that is used for any official business trip. Okay, so this one is for official business. Okay, so we are gonna use the example. I mean, we wanted to show to you the part of deployment and repatriation, so I'm gonna use the second link, the repatriation and deployment. So what we are seeing here is the group travel request to deploy or to repatriate a group of uniform personnel. Okay, it seems to be a little bit slow. All right. So the first thing that we will need to indicate as a travel administrator to deploy or to repatriate a group of IUPs would be the travel type. And the travel type, as we will see now, it identifies the type of IUPs that we want to include in the group travel request. Okay, you will notice that there are only 5 different employee user groups. Okay, so you can see here the word center for group travel requests. So all the travel requests that appear here are group travel requests. So this is all these ones are group travel requests, and you can see even here the number of travelers, right? Because all these ones correspond to group travel. Okay. Okay, so this you can see here the number of travelers. So we have travel requests with 2, travel requests with only 1 IUP. It's important because we already have questions from the missions regarding that. Okay, so the process we are showing now is to deploy or to repatriate IUPs, and no matter if you are deploying only 1 or if you are deploying 2 or 100, you have to use the same process, right? So they work as the travel requests work as a group, and in the group you can include from 1 to 100 or even more. Okay, so no matter if you are deploying only 1 person, the process to raise the deployment travel request is the same. Okay, so this is the dashboard to raise. You can modify an existing one, okay, in case you want to submit one that you saved as draft before, or in case you want to raise a new one, you will click on the start button, okay, to initiate the travel request. So I just clicked on start, and what I was mentioning before is that as travel types, okay, you can see that there are only 5, right? So the first one relates to AMMEM, UN police officers. The number 3 is military staff, foreign police unit, and government provided uniformed personnel. So we said this is a little bit confusing for some users because we said that there are 6 different employees groups. Okay, but here as travel types we can only see 5. It's not that 1 is missing, but you can see that number 3 includes military staff, contingent members, and troops, right? So military staff, it's 1 employee group, and then contingent members or troops are another 1. So they have mixed. So this, the solution has been designed to include in the same travel type military staff and contingent members or troops. So if we go and we look for the different employee groups, right, that one we can look for it in the in ECC, right? So in here we can see the 6 different employee groups, right? So this example was military observer. Okay, so we had in the presentation the list of UPs of uniformed personnel. So let me see if I can get it again. It's not working that fast, but okay. So I'm gonna get the org assignment, and we want to see the different employee groups, right? So the employee groups that we have, let's display all of them. So you can see here the employee groups. These are for international staff. Let's scroll down and search for the military ones. Okay. All right. So here on the top we can see the 6 employee groups for military, right? Here we are talking about militaries, so only these 6, and we have from M1 to M6, and I think Andrea was talking about. So we said that the which ones are IUPs. Which ones are considered IUPs? So IUPs are considered the M2 military observers are considered IUPs by the system. UN police are also considered IUPs, and M6, right? This government-provided person is also considered IUPs in the system, right? So all these are the individual uniform personnel.
I have a question from Osmer Tripoli,
sure.
Libya. Yeah, why you exclude the military contingent in this as part of the uniform personnel?
Sorry, can you repeat the question? I didn't get it.
Yeah, you just highlighted in red military observer or the M2, M3, and M6. Why is it that M5 is not included there?
Yeah, so all of them are uniformed personnel, right? So from M1 to M6, all of them are considered military police. But what I'm just emphasizing is that only M2, M3, and M6 are granted with access to the portal to raise their own travel request.
Okay, understood.
Okay, so M1, M6, sorry, M1, M4, and M5, you can still use Umoja to raise travel requests, but everything is done by the travel administrator on behalf of them, so they don't have access to the portal.
Okay, understood. So it should be done by the travel administrator, because we have a contingent here where we are deploying them, repatriating them through commercial flights.
Yes. So yeah, the deployment and repatriation can be done by the travel administrator, but the only difference would be if they need to travel within mission, okay, if they need on official business, the M1, M4, and M5 cannot do it by themselves using the portal, and will have to be done by the travel administrator. Okay?
So in this case, for M5, we should register them in the system so that they will be able to have index numbers.
Yes, yes. Without an index number, they cannot travel, right? So for M5, so without an index number, they cannot travel. So in case, for example, if you are deploying the contingent with a commercial flight and you need to deploy them using Umoja travel request, right? You will need to have an index number for each military contingent, for each member, right? For each member of the contingent.
On the basis of issuance of.
Sorry, I lost your voice. I cannot hear you anymore. Okay. All right. So as we were saying, for any travel request in Umoja, we always need the index number and the HR master record populated in the system. Otherwise, we will not be able to see or to travel the person. We will see. Let me go back to the portal. Okay, so this is the portal. This is the screen you have to indicate to raise the travel request. Okay, for deployment and repatriation. Okay, so in this case, I need to select the type of traveler, right? So in my example, it was an AMMEM, right? My example, let me go back. My example was an AMMEM military observer. So I will need to select the travel type number 1. Okay, otherwise the system will prompt me with an error message saying that the employee user group and the travel type don't match. Okay, so here as a travel type, I will need to select what kind of travelers, what kind of IUPs I want to include in the travel request. Okay, I will select the travel type, and I'll click on the uniform personnel data. Okay, and I will need to indicate the destination mission. I can use the match code to select the destination mission. Okay, so it can be, let's look for MONUSCO, for example. Start search. Okay, and I will need to indicate if the travel request relates to deployment or to repatriation. Okay, deployment, and I'll need to indicate for how long, 12 months, 6 months. Okay, and depending on that, also the shipment entitlement will be different, right? So you as a travel administrator, you will need to indicate the shipment entitlement for the IUPs. Okay, you will indicate if the UP will be carrying their own weapon. Okay, normally it will be no, I suppose. Okay, and then the important thing down, so you can see the traveler list. So in here you can indicate the IUPs that will be traveling. Okay, that will be traveling within this group. So in order to add a traveler, you click on Add Traveler, and the system will ask you for the index number. Okay, you can indicate there the index number, or you can look for it, right? You can use the match code to look for the IUP by last name or first name. So you can always use the search in order to get the index number of the IUP. Or if you know the number, you type the number, okay, of the IUP, and by hitting on enter, the system already knows their details, right? So it already knows that he's a military police, and he knows the details of the traveler, and all these details are coming from the information provided by the HR when they were executing the personnel action for the uniform personnel. Okay, in here you can do only one traveler, or you can have hundreds of them. Okay, so you will use the same functionality in Umoja to raise deployment and repatriation travel only for one person or for hundreds of people. So let me add my second index number. Okay, my second person. I'm gonna do the same. I'm gonna type the index number here, and by clicking on enter, all right, I will include the second one. Okay, and remember that all the IUPs included here, all the people included in the traveler list should belong to the same subgroup, right? So all of them should belong to the same group. So I included the second one. So the first one was Aritz, that it was an M2. This second one that has a different name, it should have the same employee subgroup. So it should also be M2. Otherwise, in the portal, as a travel administrator, the system will prompt you with an error saying that not all the travelers have or belong to the same employee subgroup. Okay, this is what we were saying before in the presentation. Okay, all right. So with that, you can let's say that in our example, I'm gonna include only 2 IUPs. I need to save the employee subgroup, and while saving, this is important. You can see here. You can see in here at the top, I saved the travel request, and I can see that the system already gave me a trip number. This is the trip number that corresponds to the group travel. So at this stage, we are still creating group travel request. Okay, and this group travel request is for the entire group. Okay. All right. So let me click on next. I have included the details of the travelers, and now I need to indicate the itinerary details. And as a travel administrator, I will also need to indicate the estimated cost, right, for the entire group. Let's see if the other has finished. So this was the second person, okay, and you can see that the second person also belongs to the same employees group, and that's why the system is allowing me to create as a travel administrator a group travel request for both of them. Okay, so I'm now in the next screen for my travel request. I'm now in the general data screen. I will need to indicate journey type, right? Normally deployment and repatriation are one way. We can put here deployment, and you can put any text here to describe the purpose. And you can see that as itinerary, you only have one. That's why the entire group should have the same itinerary. Okay, let's say that the travel will be next Monday. Let's say from I don't know, from Valencia. Okay, let's say it's a military from Spain, using a commercial flight, and arriving next day to Entebbe. Okay. All right. No DSA, and personal deviation no. And we click on additional data. So we are including the itinerary details for the two uniform personnel. So both of them will be traveling on the same days using the same itinerary. And I'll need to specify, as a travel administrator, I will need to specify in the next screen the estimated cost for the entire travel. Okay. So the tickets are being purchased from a commercial travel agency, and in the enter estimated cost, right? In the enter estimated cost, I will need to specify the amount for the group. Okay. So let's say that each ticket will cost 2,000. So we had included already two travelers. So let's say that the cost will be 4,000. Okay. So this is what we were mentioning before. This airfare ticket cost is this corresponds to the cost of the entire group. In our example, is for the in our example is for two travelers, right? So it's 2,000 each, right? Giving a total of 4,000. Okay. So that's what you are supposed to include as a travel administrator. The total cost for the two travelers, and as the question we had before, you can see that you can include even the terminal expenses here, right? You can even calculate the terminal expenses, and you can include them even from the in the estimated cost. Okay, as the same as always. Okay, so you can include, let's say that you have 4, right? So by typing here the number of arrivals and departure, you can include here the total for the terminal expenses. All right. So let me you can do terminal expenses at the travel request part, or also as recommended by the official documentation in the expense report. Okay, so let me accept. What else? You will need to.
A question at this time.
Sure.
Can I go? Okay.
Yes.
You mentioned that you have to put the expense estimated cost for the terminal, right? This terminal is how many terminal we put it? Just like if there is a group of 10, no? How many terminal we will put? Like 1 terminal, 2 terminal, or individual?
Yeah, that's why. Yeah. So as per documentation, terminal expense should be included in the travel request. But for example, in my case, you will. I mean, if you want to include in the travel request, you will need to indicate it's 1 per traveler, right? So because it's 2 per traveler because it's one in Spain, 1 in Entebbe, right? So each travel is entitled for 2, right? So if we are having 2 different travelers, it should be 4, right? 2 each.
Okay. So that's how you calculate individual traveler, not as a group.
Yeah. No, it should be for the entire group. In the end, in our group is only 2 travelers, and each of them is traveling from Valencia to Entebbe, and each of them is entitled to 2, right? To terminal expense.
So
amount.
suppose if there is 4 instead of 2, you will be multiplying it 4 into 4.
Yeah. So if there are 4 travelers, it should be 2 multiplied by 4. It should be 8, right?
8. Yeah. True. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Understood.
You're welcome.
Leandro.
Yes.
Is it not better just to include the terminals in the expense report?
Yeah,
because
I mean,
I assume the system will not split the amount to the travelers.
Yeah, so it's better to do it in the expense report, and if you look at the official documentation, it will always tell you to do it in the expense report. Okay, it will also split that cost.
Yes, to use it as a standard thing, because this might cause a confusion for some. So just keep it, because in my training, actually, I just provided my trainees that not to include these terminals in the travel request. Just keep it to the travel expense report.
Yeah, so better to keep it in the expense report, as Riot is saying. Okay. So thank you, Riot, for the feedback. Okay. So here we are not going to include the terminal expenses in the travel request. Okay, we only include the airfare ticket cost. So as a travel administrator, okay, you include the travel processing office. Okay, so you'll need to indicate which travel processing office will be purchasing your ticket. Okay, so you can search for all the different travel offices. Normally, it will be the mission. Okay, your mission, right? Okay. Give me a second. I cannot find it. Start search. Okay. I don't know why, but the training environment doesn't have the okay. So it doesn't have the travel office for MONUSCO. So I'm going to include the one for MINUSTA. I mean, this will derive the TPOs, right? That will purchase the ticket for these IUPs. So normally, in the case of traveling from the one purchasing the ticket, should be the travel office responsible for that. So for training purposes, I'm going to select MINUSTA as because it's the only one that is appearing here in the training environment. You should be selecting the travel office that is in charge of purchasing the tickets for your IUPs. Okay, we enter the estimated cost as cost assignment. as a travel administrator, this is really important. So you should be indicating here the cost center paying for that travel request. In this case, it's a deployment travel, so you should be populating here the cost center that is paying for the deployment travel of your IUPs. Okay, so this is important, and we'll also derive the list of certifying officers that will be able to approve your travel request. So the cost assignment is important, and you should populate the cost assignment, the cost center, right? The cost center paying for the deployment. Okay, and it has an impact. It will derive the list, the certifying officers, right, who will be able to approve your travel request. It can approve it, okay? The TR. All right. So this cost assignment is really important, and you should make sure that when you are raising a travel request to deploy a group of IUPs, you make sure that the cost center selected is the one that should be charged for the deployment of the IUPs. Okay. So I just modify the cost assignment. Okay, and I can accept. So that will be the procedure to raise a group travel request. The rest are the shipment office. You will have to answer to the mandatory questions and the justification for late submission if needed. And from there, you will just review and send, and you will be able to send your group travel request for certification. Okay. We almost run out of time. I wanted to show to you the other part, the part for the, so we already saw a little bit the part of the deployment and repatriation link. So we clicked before on this deployment and repatriation link. We use that one. Okay, so we clicked before on this one. Now I wanted to spend a few minutes to show to you the other one. So for any other type of travel, okay, you will use the first link. Okay, so let me go back to my first slide. Remember that in the first slide we were talking about different type of travel. Okay, we were talking about the deployment travel, that is the one we just saw, and for the other type of travel that are official business, you will use this other link. Okay, so you will use the official travel on behalf, and from there you will reach this screen where you can indicate the employee or the person for which you want to process travel request on behalf. Okay, so in here you will see all your people for which you have already raised a travel request on behalf. If it's there, you can select it. Okay, you can select, if you already process something for that person, you can select the person, and at the bottom you will see the details for that person, and you can raise travel request or expense report or shipment request for that person. If it's a new one, if you never raised anything for that particular person, let's say that I want to submit a travel request for the index number I was trying to do the deployment before. If your person is not there, you can always add an employee, okay, and type the personal number here, okay, or you can use the match code to search by name or last name. Okay, I'm gonna put, okay, an employee, right? Let me see, an employee. Okay, so I just included my my traveler, and where is it appearing? Let me see if I can find it. Okay, let me filter, and I can use my personal number here. Okay. All right. So here it is, my example of the IUP, right? So this is the one I included in the deployment travel request, the second one. Okay. And then from here, I can create expense reports. I can create official travel request. Okay. And I can even create a shipment request. So from this work center, right? So from the first link appearing in your work center, you can raise official travel request, shipment request, and the spend reports. Even the spend report that are related to deployment or repatriation travel, you can raise it from here. Okay, so in this case, you can see that this trip number appearing there is the deployment travel. So that person was already deployed, and this is the 66779. This trip number here is the individual trip number that was created by the system automatically when the TPO approved the deployment group travel request. So this is, and it's appearing in the work center for that specific travel. Do you have any question? I can hear some noise. Okay. So from here, you can raise official travel request for that particular person. Okay. So I can initiate a travel request. Okay. And you can indicate, you can raise any type of official travel for the IUPs, even within mission. So this within mission is the only type that is allowed for IUPs when they use the portal. But you as a travel administrator, you can raise, for example, official business for the IUP or for other uniformed personnel. Okay, so I'm using the travel administrator role to raise a travel request on behalf of this IUP. Okay. So in this way, you will raise travel requests on behalf of IUPs and also for all other uniformed personnel. So if, for example, contingent member needs to travel within mission, contingent members will not have access to the portal, and you as a travel administrator for UPs, you'll have to do it on behalf of them. Okay, so the screens are very similar. You can select any mode of travel, so commercial and non-commercial. IUPs will only be allowed to select non-commercial ones. So 01 option, the commercial aircraft, will not be allowed for IUPs when they raise their own travel request. So you, as a travel administrator, you are the only one that can raise commercial tickets for or travel requests with commercial tickets for UPs. Okay, so I think time is over. So we wanted just to provide you with the summary and a refresh of the different screens available for you as a travel administrator UP. We'll be sending to you the recorded session and also the presentation. And if needed, we can have additional sessions later on in a different day. Okay. This afternoon we are repeating this session, so if you already attended, no need to attend again. And we are located here in the RSC for the ramp up, so 1 week more. And if you have questions or you face an issue during your daily work as a travel administrator, you can just contact your LP or just send us an email too. Okay. So thank you very much for your time and thank you for joining. And we'll keep in touch, okay?
Okay, thank you, Leandro.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you, Leandro.
Thank you.
Leandro?
Yes.
Sorry to bother you. I sent you my extension whenever you are able to call me, please.
Okay, no problem, right. I'll do so.